you. But in a new op-ed today, Congressman Adam Schiff warns that Donald Trump's legacy is hardly a mere black mark on U.S. history. Instead, it's a roadmap for aspiring autocrats like Trump or worse. Schiff vowing today to, along with his colleagues in Congress, use his legislative authority to stop the slow march toward autocracy in its tracks. He writes this for NBC Think, quote, "It turns out the norms that made our system of checks and balances work so well could be violated with near impunity, providing one condition was present, that one of America's two great parties put the interests of a president above all other considerations. The last time a president engaged in such abuses of office during Richard Nixon's tenure, the forces of factionalism were less potent and the devotion to our institutions was far stronger. That devotion was strong enough, in fact, to force Nixon from office. Even so, in the wake of Watergate, Congress passed a host of reforms to ensure that such abuses did not occur again. They served us well for almost half a century, but it's time for us to add to them." Joining us now, Congressman Adam Schiff of California, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, a member of the House Select Committee investigating the deadly attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th. Congressman, thank you so much for making some time with us today. I remember when Bob Corker saw some things that seemed to go right to the heart of Donald Trump's fitness as commander-in-chief, and he sought unsuccessfully to limit a president's nuclear authority. This feels like the next effort in that category. Tell me about it and whether or not you have any bipartisan support.
Well, it addresses a litany of weaknesses in our democracy that we discovered over the last 4 years. So it would protect inspector generals and whistleblowers. It would strengthen the independence of the Justice Department so it can't be utilized as the president's personal law firm or to go after the president's enemies. It would provide a mechanism to enforce the Emoluments Clause so a president can't simply enrich themselves, rent out hotel rooms to Gulf nations who don't even occupy the hotel rooms as a means of currying favor. It would strengthen penalties for the Hatch Act so we don't have top administration officials recommended for firing for violating the law whose response is blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do about it? It would also try to address these temporary appointments to cabinet positions to get around Senate confirmation. And probably a dozen other really critical reforms. Probably most importantly, it would expedite enforcement of congressional subpoenas so that you can't have an administration simply stonewall them all.
Well, if you look at the two impeachments in total, and you look at the Mueller investigation, the three most public attempts to hold the ex-president accountable, they all came up short for different reasons, but it sounds like the legislation tries to address all of them. Is there anything that you looked at that could change what is currently governed by a legal memo, a guiding principle memo, the Justice Department, that says a current president can't be impeached? Is that something Congress can change?
Well, we address it to this degree, that OLC opinion that says a president can't be indicted. We would toll the statute of limitations so that you don't have a situation where the Justice Department can take the position a sitting president can't be indicted. And when they leave office, as long as they stay in office long enough, they can allow the statute to run and they can't be indicted then either. That would really put the president above the law. That OLC opinion that you mentioned, I think, is really seriously flawed. And in particular, the Justice Department never really addressed whether you could indict a president while in office, even if you had to defer the prosecution until they left. That was only given very glancing attention. So I think it's a flawed opinion. Constitutionally, can the Congress somehow override the Justice Department's interpretation? It would probably be difficult, although not impossible. But this does provide a mechanism for holding presidents accountable by saying, we're going to toll the statute. That undoubtedly we can do in Congress so that at least the president can be prosecuted when they leave office.
It feels like Adam Kinzinger is saying something when he calls this memo that Woodward and Costa report on a blueprint for a coup. Is the Select Committee investigating a conspiracy to commit a coup?
Yes, and I think Adam is exactly right. The predominant worry that I have about our democracy is not that it's going to be overthrown by a violent revolution, notwithstanding that we endured a violent attempt at insurrection, but rather that there will be quasi-legal means that so undermine our democracy that it creates a crisis and it falls apart. This is what the Republicans tried to do, the Trump campaign and administration tried to do with this memo, but it's also what GOP party leaders are trying to do around the country by stripping independent elections officials of their powers and handing them to partisan boards so that they can succeed where they failed with this attempted coup. That is, if they can't disenfranchise enough people and they still lose, this gives them a chance through the patina of legality to overturn the results. And that, to me, is the most desperate risk that our democracy faces.
Can you protect the country from the threat of domestic violent extremists without the help of the other political party? Can the Democratic Party protect the country alone?
It's a very good question, because you mentioned that the two impeachments and efforts by Bob Mueller all fell short for different reasons. Certainly the efforts in Congress fell short, but for the same reason, and that is you have one of the major parties that would not put the interests of its own institution or the Constitution ahead of their interest in maintaining power and the power of the presidency. Can one party do it alone? Some of the reforms in this package would attempt to empower one party acting alone, if they control one of the houses, to provide these guardrails. So, for example, one party that's in opposition to the White House can bring an action under the Emoluments Clause to stop the violation of that. So there are some provisions. The expedition of congressional subpoenas could be done even without the participation of the other party, if there's at least control of one house. But at the end of the day, no matter what genius our founders had, no matter how good we might pass laws in Congress, if one of the major parties gives itself up to autocracy, then the whole republic is at risk. And we really need the Republican Party to return to being a party of ideas and a party that supports democracy.
Yeah, we were talking to Bob Woodward about how the parallels to Watergate fall apart, because unlike that Republican Party, the smoking gun evidence that the two impeachments presented to the jurors, the senators, had no effect. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much for making some time to talk to us today. We're really grateful.
Thank you.